This week in production photography, we're going to be talking about the third type of lighting, which is called exposure stacking. And what this type of lighting involves is basically taking a light. We're going to be using speed lights, and we're going to be basically moving this light around our product in a lot of different spots and shooting many different exposures. Each of these images representing a different exposure from that one light. Now we can use monostrobes. You can use continuous light to do this. We're going to be using speed lights this week in the studio. And what this is going to represent, basically 7 different images which will be built into one composite. So we're going to combine all of these images together into one product-based shot, which we will then pull off of the background. A couple things are going to be understood with this demo. You should have a good grasp of layer masking. If you are not comfortable with layer masking, we talked about layer masking in our Photoshop class. You can go back to our YouTube page and watch that demo again if you need to. But I'm going to pick up from the understanding of you understand what a layer mask is, how to create one, and how to control one. And that's where we're pretty much going to start. All right, so this is the editing side. So this is after we've been in the studio. This is after we've shot. And basically, these are the exposures that we're going to use. There were a lot of different exposures. These are the ones that were chosen. These are the ones that we're going to use to build our composite. So in Lightroom, if you need to do anything to them, you can go in and you can do that here. But when you're finished in Lightroom, we're going to select all of these, Command A, and we're going to go to Photo. We're going to go to Edit In, and we're going to go to Open It in Layers in Photoshop. And what that's going to do is that's going to take all of these individual files and it's going to open them up in one Photoshop file, and each one of these files will represent a different layer. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, now that we're here in Photoshop, once all of these files have loaded into these individual layers, what we want to do first is we want to choose what our base layer is going to be. And basically what our base layer is this a layer that's going to be on the bottom. And then what we will do is we're going to reveal different areas of all of these different layers. And that's kind of how we will build this composite. A couple of shortcut keys to talk to you about real quick. Option and clicking on the eye of a layer is kind of a way to solo out that layer and then turn them all back on by clicking on that same eye while holding Option. This top layer is going to end up being my base, so I'm just going to name it. Going to name it base layer, and I'm going to move it all the way to the bottom. This is going to be my base layer, but a couple of things you're going to need to be comfortable with when you're exposure stacking. One is you need to understand layers and how to control layers, how to move them, how to control their opacity, how to control their blends. We've done videos on all of these different things. The screen blending mode is going to be important in this one, especially when we get into these where we want to be able to save these highlighted. We want to be able to save these highlighted areas and see these highlighted areas while canceling out all these darker tones. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're working. All right, next we're going to create layer mask for all of these supporting layers. So these are layers that we're going to be showing specific areas of each of these on to our base layer. So when I hold down the Option key and I click Create Layer Mask, you'll see that it's going to actually create a black mask. So everything on this layer is going to be hidden. And then I'll paint white on it to reveal that. So I'm just going to go ahead and mask all of these. A couple of shortcut keys to give you. When you hold down the Shift key and you click on any mask, it is a quick way to disable that mask. Now the reason I'm showing you that shortcut is because we're going to go image by image. We're going to disable the mask, we're going to look around this image, and we're going to find areas that we want to include in our composite. So I'm just going to start with this one because I like this area of this bottle. Now before I start painting, what I'm really going to do is I will end up pulling this whole bottle off of its background. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to work with what's called a global mask. Now what a global mask is it's a mask that can be put onto a group. So we're going to take all of these layers, we're going to group them, Command G, Now I've already created a selection, so we're going to use that selection to create a layer mask for this group, and it will mask everything that we want to hide out of it. So let's go in. I'm going to load this selection, select, load selection. You could also load it from the channels. We've talked about this in class. Holding down the command key and clicking on that will load this selection. I'm just going to take this selection. I'm going to choose what I want to apply this mask to. I'm going to apply it to the group, and I'm going to click Create Layer Mask. And what that'll do is that's going to mask that off the background. I'm going to expand this, and basically I'm just going to start revealing different areas from this bottle. Now before I do that, just so I'm not looking at this transparent background, I'm going to add a solid color adjustment layer. And let's go in and pick us a color. We'll drag it below it. Let's make it a different color just so it won't get in the way. Alright, so using my brush tool, and there are a lot of different ways that we can do this, but using my brush tool, I'm going to start revealing different areas of each of these layers. Now I'm going to be painting on the layer mask. I'm going to be painting with white. And basically what we do is we make sure the mask is selected and we start painting with white to reveal different areas. Now this is just going to be a general demo. You can go in and you can take your time. If you need to isolate an area, you can always go in and make a selection of that area, and then when you're painting, it's going to contain that edit into that selection. So if you want to go and do something like that, I would definitely need to make adjustments to that. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to start clicking on each of these masks and revealing different areas of each of these exposures. I can hold shift, take a look around. I kind of like this highlight over here. So I'm going to make sure that mask is selected, and I'm just going to reveal that area of the bottle. Now there's a lot of stuff that we can do with this. We could take this layer right now because it did make some areas a little bit darker, and we can change its blending mode to screen. That'll cancel out some of those darks. We can do something like Command J and duplicate that layer, and then take that layer, do all kind of stuff. Take that layer and I'm going to flip it horizontally because I do like that highlight. And then basically what I've done is just flip this image, but it's giving me this highlight over here as well. So I could go in, I could grab this, and I see that they're not lined up perfectly, but I could always go in and go to Edit, Transform, and I could warp it. I could skew it, I could distort it. I think I'm going to go to Distort. And I'm looking really at that highlight, and I'm just kind of moving this image around just to distort it a little bit. Click Return. And this is fast, so you can go in and you can kind of do whatever you want to do with this. I do encourage you can do this with any kind of image that you want, any scene that you want. Take one light, shoot as many exposures as you need, moving your light around, and then bring that into Photoshop, and then you can edit this, showing and hiding different layers.